Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Totally looking for you to live your best life. And to help you do that, there's a place that's called Lotus Life. It's the Center for Holistic Health and Conscious Living. And Vitra Gosine is with the center and with us today. And you're not just anybody, this is not just energy healing. You are an endocrinologist. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Yes, you have the credentials and you're helping a lot of people. And it's great to have you back, Vitra. How are you?
Good. Glad to be back. And how are you doing today?
Doing very well, very well. I enjoyed last time we were talking. It was a very honest talk about the state of healthcare in our country, and figured we'd pick up from where we left off last time. Does that sound good?
Yes, sounds good to me.
And
Let me know when you're ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we're going to talk about Lotus Life. And by the way, the website is mylotus.life, not .com, mylotus.life. So when we talked about the state of the healthcare system, we talked about meds and, the doctor situation, and it was great because you gave a view from both sides. You as a patient, but then you also as a doctor. What has happened with the relationship between patients and doctors? Because my view of it is, unless you have a really true traditional primary care doctor that sees only a certain number of patients, it's like a factory. You're walking in, you're walking out. There's no real personal connection. You're lucky if they actually remember what you talked about the last time we were there. Do you feel the same exact way in a lot of regard?
So in many respects, I can definitely identify with that because, again, like you said, I'm a board certified endocrinologist. So I have, two practices, the Center for Integrative Functional Endocrinology. When I'm there, most of my time I spent over there. And then I'm also the medical director of Lotus Life, overseeing all the services we do. So you're correct. Speaking as a physician myself, as a patient, because I go to my own doctors, and also as a family member or caregiver of my elderly mom who, so from all perspectives. And yes, I do get it. I understand and empathize with the patient's frustration with this. This is a real problem. And I think I alluded to kind of like, I don't want to say why all, but why there is basically it's necessary, or it became sort of common for physicians to have to see so many patients. And one of the reasons is, again, first of all, we have a shortage of physicians now, especially after the pandemic. So we're outnumbered basically as far as patients. I'm an endocrinologist, and endocrinology specifically is one of the specialties in the shortest supply. Okay. And it's getting worse. Secondly, even for, this is an honest conversation, for physicians to keep their doors open or even manage, their overhead. With all their good intentions, they would not be able to do that if they can't afford to keep their offices running, pay their staff, things like that, the cost of liability, all of those things. They actually have to see X number of patients to even be able to continue doing what they're doing. So there are some really practical implications as well. So that relationship, yes, has suffered. I think it has, wait times have increased. The length of time you spend in speaking with a physician has decreased. And that has really led to some sort of frayed nerves, ruffled some feathers on both sides, I should say. And so there are some things, I want to mention. As a doctor myself, there is no greater honor and privilege to be able to be trusted or entrusted, I should say, with someone's care, whether it's physical, but we also deal with mental, emotional, spiritual, and things going on psychologically that affect health outcomes and a patient's medical condition. So one of the things, I want to talk about is, how each side perceives the other. And there may be some preconceived notions there coming in. That may be problem number one, okay? And, I think also I'll now put the physician hat on. Sometimes patients may have a bad experience or bad experiences before. And sometimes when they walk in the door, they may presume that, you may be the same way. So I think, and also I can say also from a physician standpoint as well. So I think it starts off, first of all, with having an open mind, meaning that I know there have been, people have had, good and bad experiences before, but they need to approach this sort of on a clean slate. I know it's hard to do, especially with the temperature of society today, with the pandemic, all the stresses and strains, but I think that is a good first start. And then we can get into the, a little bit more detail a little bit later on.
I know in the New York area, I see this happening a lot, and you're in Florida, so I'm curious if it's there, but a lot of medium-sized medical companies are swallowing up a lot of the primary care, local primary care physicians. And there's some good in that, strength in numbers. But then on the other side of it, it takes away that personal feel. Is it happening down there too?
It is. And I'm one of those diehard, last of the Mohicans, heels dug in. I can tell you, I can have a lot easier life if I gave into that. Believe me, but there's something within me that for that very reason you just said, that I feel that it's the human element that matters most. Now, let me be clear. There are days I feel like a chicken running around without a head, that I have crazy days in there that, and as a specialist, it's even more complex issues we're dealing with. So yes, it's happening down here. No, I don't want to be a part of it because I feel that it is not authentically me. It's not the reason I went into medicine. And while I've had to adapt and change with, the time, so to speak, as we all do, I would like to keep that authenticity, that human element, which is why Lotus Life was born, actually, because I felt I wasn't getting enough of that, and that's what I think it's actually most needed. So yes, there's strength in numbers, but I think we talked about the ACOs, those organizations. And I personally think that we're doing a disservice, both to physicians, medical professionals, as well as patients. I would say plainly.
What do you think the answer is?
You know what? I actually think we need an overhaul of this system. We really need to stop making money the bottom line. I think we need to take care of people when intentions are there, good intentions are there. And I know the road to hell is also paved with good intentions, but I'm just saying that when we focus on people, we talked last time about preventative healthcare, for example. We need to focus on covering preventative healthcare, paying physicians who have incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and interest in medical education, and not just physicians, all medical professionals that are involved in this in every sphere. We need to make sure that they are, number one, for patients, like I just mentioned, we cover preventative healthcare. Number two, in terms of reimbursement or paying medical professionals, we need to pay them according to the quality of the time and outcomes and education in terms of, educating patients on lifestyle changes. Physicians, medical professionals don't really get paid for that. And that is the most important aspect of healthcare, because you're preventing. It is the time spent getting to really understand what's going on with the patient. You have the time to get to the root cause of what's causing that medical problem. You also have the time to connect the dots. That is why, we have so many people using the emergency room as a primary care place, because, everything is a quick fix and a bandage and sent out. Where, the cost to financially, as well as the cost to patients, meaning that they're not getting the care that they absolutely need. Which brings me to the other side of things. Patients also have a responsibility. One of the pressures that I feel every day in my practice is that, a lot of times, think about it, you can't supply something that there really is no demand for. Okay, that's a concept that we need to understand. And there's some accountability and I will now say, take my physician hat off and say from a patient standpoint. So the expectation that to come in and get a quick fix, for example, not giving your doctor enough time to work up, sometimes it's a little bit of impatience, which we experience sometimes, saying, these are the test results. But sometimes when you get test results, it leads you to evaluate something else. And you got to be patient with the process, because if you really want to get to the depth and breadth of good healthcare. It takes time, energy, and resources to really get to the root cause of the problem. The other thing is, and this is why we're having all these little around the corner shops in every pharmacy, everything springing up as, sort of your healthcare around the corner. It's not good quality healthcare. We need to really, patients as well need to understand that sometimes their wait times may vary because we really are trying to take care of patients. Medical test results, it may take time to come to that diagnosis, but we got to be patient as well. Reading on Google, I talked about a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, right? And sometimes, going to, so-called medical professionals who have taken a course here, a weekend course or a weekday, and pretending that they are qualified to do these things. So, these clinics, weight loss clinics, supplements clinics, all of these things springing up. And what the bottom line is, they're money-making businesses. They're not there to help you. But patients also need to sort of educate themselves that, listen, you have to go to someone who knows what they're doing. You can research that they are who they say they are. And so this sort of demand is what drives the supply. So we need to also, be held accountable for that as well.
It's so true. And great example. I spoke with a friend yesterday, and they can't afford health insurance right now. So they found a company online, just an app, and you can get prescriptions. I'm like, you can get, how is that? He goes, yeah, you just log in, $12 a month, I believe it is, for the subscription. And there's a medical professional there, and you can't get the hard stuff, in terms of medication, but let's say you have an infection, UTI, whatever it might be, you just explain it, they write it, and you're done. And it's a discount on the medication, like substantial discount. So it almost just bypasses the need for, like you just said, the quick fix, walking in, got to get something quick, I'm going to walk out. And it's sad that it has to be that way.
Well, and I have to say now, I'll switch back hats. It's the fault of the system that why should we have insurance premiums cost this much? This is where you're pushing patients also as well. So it's both sides. We share responsibility on both sides. I want to share a personal experience yesterday, as you just did, with a patient of mine. This happened just yesterday. And I'm telling you, there's a divine intervention. Here I am thinking what I'm talking about today. And I was talking to my office manager. I said, oh my goodness, yesterday we had a patient call in. And again, this is an honest conversation. So you're going to see, in full transparency. A patient of mine who's been a patient of the practice for 2 years called in. And I do inpatient visits. We do telemedicine visits if it's something that's, in between their big follow-ups that I don't physically need to see them, all of that. However, this had to be an in-person visit. So she had passed the time that she was supposed to follow up, seeing for a thyroid condition, wanted a refill of the medication. However, I do have to follow the thyroid hormone levels. I have to get that blood work. I have to see you examine the thyroid, do the thyroid ultrasound, do all of that. So she's overdue, way overdue. When we, apparently she was informed by one of my staff members, we do need to do blood work, ultrasounds, all of that stuff. What came out was some expletives, actually, some not so fine language, which I can't use on air. And then the comment was, well, I'll just write some nasty reviews of your office online. So this is not a level playing field. And I will be honest with you, as a medical professional, it truly is unfair that this is what has become the norm, okay? I have had, we have had personal experiences with people who either didn't want to pay a bill or, something like this, or they want testosterone without me doing, I'm an endocrinologist, I do MRI of your pituitary, ultrasounds, blood work. I have to make sure. Why? Because there are certain conditions I got to rule out that if I were to prescribe this to you, I can cause some really bad illnesses. And my first oath is to do no harm. And I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm simply here to take good care of you. I have lived up to that oath. I've sometimes paid the price of doing that, but it is like I said, integrity and spirituality are two very important elements that still need to be there. And so these are some of the things that we face that make it difficult as well. So it's not just, it's a very complex issue, actually. It's a very complex issue. And I think, the reading online, as quick accessibility to things, while I am big on educating my patients, I'm big on that. I think that's, I do believe that physicians have to do right by their patients, educate them, do the things that you're supposed to be doing. I can also give you, other examples where now I'm talking from the point of view as a family member, caregiver to my mother, in hospitals that, here in local hospitals where, things were not done the way they should be done by physicians. And the way we should be taking care of patients would be treat this as if this is you or a family member or a loved one. Physicians also have that responsibility, and they fall short many times in doing that. And that is not right either. So we do see some of those issues.
Yeah. And your challenge there, and you're right, not an equal playing field, because,
Yes.
That one patient can write that review
And ruin.
And that one review can be worth thousands of dollars to a doctor's practice. So what happens on the flip side of that? Then that doctor has to have people on staff or hire people to make sure that they have great reviews, soliciting to squash down that one bad review to get a look.
Mhm.
Instead of spending time with the patients, they're worried, and it's all understandable. They're worried
Yes.
about getting better reviews or keeping good reviews up there. It's almost like a bad cycle that just keeps going around and around.
So there are times where I'll be honest with you, and this, like I said, it's an honest conversations where I've had patients that have threatened me in person while I'm sitting there. And for good or bad, this is my response. And this may ruffle some feathers, but I say, I'm not here to score brownie points. I'm here to take care of you. And whatever is written does not change my integrity or my character or my intention.
Mm-hmm.
Period. There is a price you pay for that. But, again, I took an oath, and I'm here to truly help take care of patients, because when I am stuck, should I do this or this? The way I make my decision is ask myself, what if this were me or a family member? What would I do? My first priority is to do right by that patient, whether or not I get a good review or not.
Yep. I totally get it. And you're not going to deviate from what you normally do in terms of taking care of that patient. That's just the way.
Correct.
That's it. You can't.
Yes.
You have to sleep at night as well. And just because the patient is saying, I'm fine, just make it, phone the med in, write the med, let me get it, no, it can't be that way. A lot of people think it can be, but there's reasons behind it. And you have especially a thyroid. I mean, that's very, very specific, there's so many variables with that you need to address in terms of levels and things like that. This time the doctor knows best.
And by the way, that's the other thing. I approach this with a lot of humility, in the sense that patients ask me certain things, and I said, listen, we do, even as physicians, we do the best with what we know now. Tomorrow we may discover something totally different, and I may be telling you the opposite to what I'm telling you today. Mm-hmm. And if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to pretend to know. I'm going to refer you to someone whose area of expertise can help you, because the best way you can respect a patient is by saying, sometimes I don't know, because we don't know everything. We do not know, everything in medicine, and we work as a team. There's one thing though that, one more thing in terms of patient's perspective is their concept of holistic. A lot of people think holistic means just natural, and then you throw out advanced medical science. We can't do that. Holistic means exactly that, the whole thing. We use a multidimensional approach where we are actually using advanced medical science, because we have some amazing things going on in advanced medical science, today, that would not have allowed us to have the quality of life that we do now. And I embrace that. I'm still medical scientist, so to speak, but I take a holistic approach. The way I look at it is the body is the temple of the soul. So we're trying to look at health as not just the absence of disease, but wellness and well-being. It involves consciousness. It, like I said before, having deep, meaningful relationships, purpose, for waking up in the morning, and really addressing the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of health.
So, and by the way, we're talking with Vitra Gosine, and she's with Lotus Life, and she lives a double life, actually. She's a board certified endocrinologist, and she also has the Center for Holistic Health and Conscious Living. So you actually approach it from two different sides, more of a organic approach and more of a medical approach. What about tips for patients? Is there something that we can talk about that will help the doctor do a better job? Maybe like top 3 things. Obviously, please be on time or a few minutes before,
Well, let me tell, I can't tell patients to be on time because I run behind as well. So that would be, So I think first of all, just, if it's the first visit with a new doctor, just come in with an open mind. I totally understand if you've had a bad experience before, because yes, it happens. So I would say come in with an open mind. Number 2, don't assume that everything online is correct. I call it Dr. Google, because it makes our lives really difficult.
Yes.
That I am all for educating yourself. And number 3, have an honest conversation. I mean, we really do want to know what's going on, what you think. I may prescribe something if there's a reason that there's an issue with the medication or the treatment plan. Just have an honest discussion. I think that's the only way we can actually get past this. It's a partnership, but understand one thing, that no one is responsible for your health other than the person. Yeah. So, we all have to be accountable, whether we're the healthcare practitioner, we are accountable for the position that we were given or entrusted to do. And as a patient, you're also accountable for your health in terms of the things you do outside of the visit, in terms of lifestyle. You just gave,
and you're right, we are our own best advocate when it comes to our health. But you brought back a memory, my primary care physician, and by the way, I'm going to share with you right now, I changed insurance. I pay out of pocket to go to that physician because they're so good. And they cut me a break because I've been there for a long time. And again, I could be changing insurance along the way, but their staff is so on top of things. If you call in for a refill, it's boom, 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 got the information, move on. They know how to move things along to help the doctor, whereby I had some procedures done with the big conglomerate that took over another practice and another practice. And I have to say they weren't on point. And it's the bigger is not always better there.
The staff can make or break the office. And we've 100%. Had situations on both sides. Like, for example, during the pandemic, when we had, staff turnover, things like that, there are things that happen. Obviously, there's a long training process. And in this field of endocrinology, it's not easy to train people in this because they're very specific biochemical testing, things like that. It's extremely difficult. We just went through a period where, so usually everything is on point. We recently had to, hire someone else. So that during that training period, yes, we got a few complaints, which, we're guilty of. But, once we're trained and we're on track, the staff can make or break, of course, the office, because we work as a team. No one person can run this. We work as a team, and we're all on the same side. We want to, promote health and take care of patients.
Nothing's perfect. It never will be. There's always going to be a hiccup. I call them speed bumps, whether it's in a practice or whatever the situation may be. And then as a patient, you need to accept that. Yes. But there's, levels of respect each way.
There's one last point, and that is, I know, and this is the one that's probably the most controversial. I know we live in a pretty litigious culture, and, it's one of the things that sometimes are, thrown around. Obviously, The intention is to do no harm. Obviously, if there's, gross negligence, clearly, hey, I'm a human being, and believe me, as a family member to my caretaker, to my mom, I've seen quite a bit of that, and that would enrage even me. And I think, we need to take a look at that as well. That needs to be looked at, so that we're fair on both sides.
Yeah. I really, Vitra, I appreciate your honesty. It's been super cool, just like kind of breaking it down, the healthcare system, and, what the challenges are on both sides, and you seeing both sides. And
yes, I live both sides.
You live both sides. Yeah. And especially with two different types of practices, now you see both sides of that, but also when you, as a caregiver as well.
Yes.
Real quick, we're just about out of time, but Lotus Life, tell us about Lotus Life, and if somebody wants to kind of adopt a more holistic approach to their health.
So Lotus Life, it's meant as a complementary or integrative medicine center. Again, I'm always going to say, please, go to your doctor's visits. This is not a substitute for your regular doctor's visits. It's meant to complement that. So Lotus Life is, like we said, the Center for Holistic Health and Conscious Living. We're big on lifestyle, on approaching, elevating our patients or clients' level of consciousness to make conscious choices. We don't want to impose that on you, but what we want to do is enlighten you, educate to make conscious choices with eating habits, lifestyle, your purpose in this world. What is the reason for your existence? It starts from there. Health, longevity, and relationships with others. So we offer a lot of different services. You can go online. We have many different services that complement our traditional medical practice.
It's almost like a 360 approach to wellness, because we're talking about all the things that are important to make sure you're healthy. And it would be nice if insurance companies recognize things like that as well.
So that is actually the point. We need a complete change of perspective, a paradigm shift completely.
Yep.
Because otherwise, we're going nowhere fast.
And if insurance companies recognize that in the big picture, not to use a cliche, they probably would be saving so much money.
That's what the point I made. The first and most important reason is because it's the right and decent thing to do, that we take, healthcare is not a privilege. It's a right. Okay. But while we're also accountable for our health, but they will, number one, save money. We're going to have better outcomes. Yeah. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. MyLotus.life. Go to the website, check it out. Vitra, always a pleasure talking with you.
Pleasure talking with you too, Steve.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.